Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Fireside Chat. This is Fireside Chat number 28. And today we're going to be talking about driving change, which is quite an essential skill for a consultant. And I would say for anyone who's trying to improve their life. However, it's not as easy as one may think. But before we go into the meat of the pie, remember, if you like what you're seeing, these are usually informal conversations. We haven't prepared anything and so on. So if you like what you're seeing, subscribe, hit the notification button so that we can, you know when things come out. And that's all the shameless plugging that we're going to be doing for now. Let's hit it up and start with change. So why don't we go into the motivation behind change? Because a lot of the time people want to change things individually, no, but in order to make it happen, it usually needs to be a team effort, no. So who wants to start there? What do you think are some of the motivations, and how can we deal with that?
You can go, Mesh.
No, thank you. Right. So the way that I see is actually change is related to the pursuit of excellence, and it goes quite nicely with the mindset of software craftsmanship as well, right? And excellence is about uh, continuously improving, is doing a better job next time, right? So always improving on the work that we have done previously, right? So the way I see it is that when you talk about things that need to change, it doesn't need to be related to a the connotation sometimes is that something is bad and so it needs to change. It could be that something is okay and we want to improve it and it still needs to change, right? So it could be incremental, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? So the way I see is the motivation behind change is our pursuit for excellence, whether that is related to processes, practices, culture, all those different aspects, even the product itself, the way we provide value, the way we interact, all these things can be subjected to change in order to improve the whole in this case the software development effort, because we're talking about creating software, but not necessarily just related to technology or technical practices, but as I mentioned, processes, cultures, and all those aspects as well.
Yeah, for me, those are the good kind of change, right? So you have the right motivation. You want to just make something better, as you were saying, and this is certainly one motivation for change. But there is the other one, as you mentioned as well. There is the ones that you need to, right? So it comes from a need, and that those needs can be very different from each other. It can be a proper external need. I don't know. Maybe there is a regulation. Maybe there is a new kind of thing that you need to comply to that comes from outside. Maybe there are some issues that you are having as a company or as a product you need to change in order to address those issues. And some of the other needs are sometimes individual needs that come out of frustration. You're just frustrated about something. There is something that is really annoying you, and you say like, look, I need to do something about it. And I'll need to change something. And I need to do that myself because like I'm the one feeling annoyed. But I think that the other ones are the much better change because like there is a satisfaction. You are doing that because you're really enjoying the ones that you referred to, Mesh. That is such a look. We are doing okay, but we want to do even better, right? We want to improve
Uh,
things. And
it,
yeah.
Actually, in a way, that's also related to survival. You know, if you talk about
You
the
just took
evolution.
that out of my exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
for me, it's about survival. It's about the context has changed, and now if you want to succeed, no, you need to adapt, and
Mhm.
it's a reaction to the environment changing a lot of the time. No,
Yeah.
whether that environment is your workplace, you know, the code, the business, the pandemic, whatever it is, it is adapting basically. And
So So, like, sorry, Jose, I think it's even more subtle than that. When I was thinking about survival, it's like the way I see it is a change should be constant. And actually, if you don't change, you're changing towards getting better, responding to environment. But if you didn't change, you might still be surviving. But at some point, you're gonna become extinct, or obsolete or whatever, right? It's almost like keeping up so that you don't fall so far behind that it's they use the term kind of like death by a thousand cuts or boiling the frog or all those different kind of sayings that relate to this, is that if you are not constantly improving, at some point you might find that you've got no option but but to take some drastic actions to actually survive. That this is also a survival strategy where you are slowly kind of improving by making change part of what your process and culture.
When we talk about motivation, one of the main reasons why transformation efforts fail is what is known as lack of sense of urgency, right? And this is, a lot of the time people die just because of that reason, right? Like, you may want to be the one, you may want to change something around you, but no one else sees that as an issue. No one else is aware or is motivated enough to act on that. No, and this is quite important because everything else is sustained on that. Like, if you put effort into creating that sense of urgency, and sometimes that may be, let's just get some metrics out of the code, or let's some performance on the system, or some numbers around how sales are dropping, or how our market share is reducing, and so on. Things that seem a bit, why do I need to do that? Doesn't everyone see that? Well, a lot of the time, no, because day to day is eating up all the time, right? So I would say that that's one of the main areas to focus if you really want to make things happen, no? Like creating that sense of urgency.
And there is a sense of urgency, but there is some sense of excitement as well, because that's the other side. I think I found it interesting when Mesh opened it, like focusing the change on getting better instead of solving a problem, right? So, because the same could apply in here. So there is a sense of urgency. That's something that, hey, we really need to fix that. But another thing is like, hey, we are excited about doing this thing. So you can create those different types of senses, like a sense of urgency, but a sense of excitement, a sense of like, hey, you know what, like, wouldn't it be cool if we really did that? So it's interesting how you
Challenge, more like a challenge. No,
exactly, or paint a picture that said, hey, that everyone would like to be in a certain place in the future, right? Or the company or the product or whatever, right?
A vision that you may buy into. In fact, that is where it's a very good point. Actually, it's that kind of change leads to like, for example, we talk about the lone developer who wants to have test driven development as a practice introduced, right? Why do they want to do that, right? So the part of it is it always related to them thinking that this will improve the quality of the software, or is it the image of XP and test-driven development and professionalism and doing the right thing, and they want to place themselves within that? Is it a personal endeavor that they're trying to bring change because they're excited, as you said, by that image of a professional developer that is trying to use the more better tools, let's say, to I haven't seen it like that. There is a personal thing, and almost that seems to be often more frequent when the individuals are trying to drive certain kinds of change.
I think because they have their own view of what good looks like, or what what a great place to work, or what a great piece of software, what a great product, or whatever that might be. Like they have their own view of like, would it be cool if I was part of something with this shape? Yeah. So using these techniques or doing this, and as people idealize that thing, they want to be in that situation, and
Well,
they
I don't know if idealize is the right word for this. Like envision, maybe. Like if they see that is attainable and so on. Because idealize seems, for me at least, has a connotation of something that you cannot achieve, right? And a lot of the times those things are quite attainable. It's just it's more of a vision or an image that you're trying to
I think,
put
well,
down.
this leads us to a slightly different thing as well, because like the reason that individuals push for change is like normally I think that they are more on a personal mission than in I don't know, maybe I'm just taking my own life experience
Why
and
do
try to
people change?
generalize, right? So I'll probably not do that because other people might have different views. But like for example, normally when I was trying to drive some change, I was more on a personal mission. Like there were things that I really believed that would be better for everyone, but I was envisaging or idealizing something. So like maybe I think that I said, oh, I have these ideas, this place or this software or this product or whatever could be better if it did that. I had my own ideas, so that was driving me, my motivation to change that. But in order to achieve that, then I had to bring other people on board, and that is the difficult thing because we need to paint the same picture. People need to share the same kind of feelings, to that. There is a way that I was not able to do that very well as a developer because I don't think that back then I looked very broad. I must confess I had a very myopic view. Like now, the position where I am, I can see how myopic my view was. Right. So basically, I was just focusing. I didn't have like for example, oh, this would be better for the company or for the whole project, or even when I said those words, I always had a hidden agenda. What
It
would
was
be
the
better?
way to link it to what you wanted to no?
Exactly. And
instead of
I
instead of
think this
actually
is
being
often the
committed.
case, though. It's quite a
Yeah.
quite a normal thing, right? I don't think, I'd be surprised if, like, if you really dig down, there's
It's
a personal
individual.
drive, isn't it, behind it?
And you know what? Sorry.
No, no.
So
When you
so
combine, the only thing I would say, sorry, when you can combine it, when you are lucky and you combine, for example, this is what I really want to do, or this is how I would like this to be, and that is shared because it's also everyone say, oh, this is actually a good thing for everyone. Then is a big winner. But sometimes you don't have that, and because of the myopic view, and I had to learn that in the hard way. Because then you end up. I don't know if you've been the two of you have been in this situation where you are thinking to yourself, why no one else sees this? Why I need to try so hard to convince people to see? Why can't they see this? Right? And quite often, like I realized that I was the one that also didn't have the full picture, or I could not see all the different perspectives. But I can only see that now.
you
You
just
you may have the right
remind.
solution. You probably have the right solution. Just needed to find the problem.
Exactly. So like, I need to find another place. Maybe I'll find another job that they have that problem, so that I can apply
Exactly,
it.
and then I
Right?
can apply this solution. No, you reminded me something because we with the Smoking Brains we did a bunch of transformations, and sense of urgency was one of the things that we attacked. And part of that was doing an assessment, right? And I remember very clearly there were three questions that there were many questions, no, but there were three in particular that were quite revealing to people when we showed them the results, right? And the three questions were, my organization needs to change. No, how I'm completely in favor, or no, a Likert scale. Yeah, my team needs to change. Yeah, Likert scale, and then I need to change. And it was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, how people would agree that the organization needs to change, that their team, maybe there are some things that they need to change, but they shouldn't change.
Absolutely
and
not.
and
Yeah,
it's mind blowing, kind of.
that's
What do you mean you don't need to change it? What is the organization? The organization is the people. It's us, right?
exactly.
Maybe
So
Jose, we should do another fireside chat just about driving to change yourself or driving the change
Driving,
within you.
yeah, driving personal change.
but yeah, no, and we be talking, we talked about sense of urgency, we talked about vision. There's actually an article by John P. Cotter in the Harvard Business Review that is called "Why Transformation Efforts Fail." This is something that he wrote, before I think he came up with the model, with the change model. If you want to look it up later, that's cool. But he put in there, I think, 8 reasons, more or less. You had the sense of urgency, you had lack of a vision, so people didn't know what the vision was for the change, under communicating that vision. Actually, I think he says something like by a factor of 10. No, and this is very real. Like, you see people, hey, we're gonna change. They do a presentation, one presentation, yeah, and that's it. Everyone knows where we're going. Everyone, like, that's not the way that it works. No, like, and he tackles a bunch of things, like having a strong coalition, so a group of people that is kind of pushing that. He talks about generating quick wins. This is the other thing, right? Like, you wanna do a change, but that vision is probably years away from from where you are today. How do you keep people engaged in order to get to where you want to, and so on? Like, there's plenty of pitfalls, no, that people normally go through really quickly, no.
There are also different types of change as well, and I think that different types of change, they bring different challenges as well, right? So, because for example, I remember like a common one, like as a developer, you want to change like how the software is written. Maybe like you want to change the architecture of the system, or you want to change the design of how you do certain things, or even like frameworks and technologies and stuff. That is one kind of change, right? And this comes with different challenges, because different types of changes, you end up interacting with different people, and you need to use different types of motivators in order to bring them along. So for example, this one that I mentioned, like, will be more focused on developers, but if you want to change the process that you are using, and by process I mean, I don't know, how requirements are gathered, or how we define the next set of priorities, or how we deploy things into production, like the whole value stream mapping, let's say, for example, from an idea to software production. How do we work? How do we collaborate with other teams? All of a sudden now, the drivers are different, the problems are different, the type of people that you interact with to make the change is completely different, and you have like many other things, like there are cultural. So I wonder, like, for example, how well equipped we are, because we see like as an individual, we, as you said, Jose, I find it's very interesting, because we think that we know all, right? We see the world with our own perspective, and we can point everything that is wrong, but we never take into account that we don't have the full vision, right? And then we get frustrated. So I wonder, like, for example, do you see many different types of changes and different challenges with them? Like,
If you ask me, I don't think there is much difference. I mean,
okay, interesting.
let's take a step back. Yeah, are
Okay.
we talking about change, or are we talking about a transformation? Because
What,
for me,
okay.
those are two different things. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
explain the difference.
for me, a
Explain.
change. Sorry.
No, explain the difference. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know what
You
the
don't
difference is.
see the difference. Okay, so for me, a change is a finite state kind of thing, right? Like, you get to a point where that's the new state, and this is, I think, the mistake that a lot of people that are trying to transform their organizations also make, especially the C level and that kind of stuff. Is like, we want to be agile. No, we want to be more agile, and that translates to every team needs to use Scrum.
Mm, I
Okay,
see.
Hmm.
so
And you
if you're talking
classify that
about,
as change.
I classify that as a change. It's a project kind of thing. No, it's a, hey, we're here, we got here, and this is a change. And to some extent, that's okay. You may want to go for that. When you're talking about a transformation, you're talking about changing the underlying, belief systems or the culture that is happening in, so that independently of where you are, it behaves differently. Yeah, because what usually tends to happen is you're not transforming. When you do that change, what usually happens is people still believe the same things. They are applying the tools that you told them to apply or whatever, but they're applying under the same belief system, the same culture, and the same acquired behaviors and so on. So
The
therefore,
funny, I have an anecdote there, Jose. Just before you continue, actually, when I joined UBS, in fact, I was in a team, and the team had a product owner, and he introduced me to himself to me, and he says, "Oh, I am the product owner. I used to be the project manager, but now we're doing this agile thing, so they call me the product owner, but I am the project manager."
Yeah.
exactly. So for me, a transformation is always a cultural thing. You're talking about changing the system, not just at the practice level, but at the fundamental level, and that is a lot harder to do. So yes, if you're talking about uh, driving a practice or whatever, the let's say the specifics of what you're going to, like, I need to train people, so I need to train them in TDD, or I need to, no, like, those things will be different, because of course the domain of expertise that you're trying to push that change in is different. But what's happening underneath is exactly the same thing. Like, people are changing their behavior, they're changing their beliefs, and they're now seeing, the context in which they are in a different, from a different perspective, so to speak. No, a
I've
different.
never, yeah, I see. I've never seen this way, but so for just to understand the point that you're making. So when you talk about transformation, quite often we associate that to company transformation, to very
Or
large
agile transformation. I've seen
agile
many agile transformation,
transformation,
which is what you're calling change.
Digital
digital
transformation.
Digital
transformation,
transformation.
right? Yeah, it's a big thing, company wide, all this kind of stuff, right? So, but given the definition that you are making, so would you consider, for example, you could have like a very small type of transformation? You mentioned TDD, for example, because one thing is to say, from now on, everyone needs to write tests, right? And then all of a sudden now we've seen that in quite a few projects ourselves. Like, there is someone says, hey, from now on we need this amount of coverage. We need to have unit tests for everything, or different types of tests, or whatever, right? So that would be, given your explanation, that would be more of a change. Like a transformation is when the people actually doing the job, like the developers, the testers, the product owners, everyone involved in the software process, like when they truly believe that having those tests or writing those tests first is a better way of working. Is that the difference that you are
Yes,
making?
they're acting under a different belief system, so to speak. That's the way
I
that I see it.
see.
They are something new that they were not before. It's not just the
Ho-
same thing with with the new practice.
So,
Yeah.
Jose, one thing, I'm just looking at it from an like English language perspective. Just where do
Mm.
you get the difference from? Because actually, the word change and the word transformation, the transform actually is related to a form that takes
To
another
another
form,
form.
right?
Okay.
So that's also, a form changes into another form. So both a transformation in the English language sense, I'm not looking at any dictionary, but maybe I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
transformation in English language sense involves change. So where
Because
does
the
this
change.
distinction come from? The transformation is, like, I'm just picking on the words, because I think the concepts are actually really interesting. But I'm just first of all picking on the words. Does it come from some kind of body of knowledge, or is it just a how you're using the
I
two
wouldn't
words?
be able to tell you exactly where I got this from, to be honest. And from an English language perspective, it's probably there's no difference on the
Sorry, I'm a
vocabulary
stickler
regularly.
for
No,
words.
it's fine. No, you don't say, okay, so let's put it this way. You don't say you transform places. You say you change places. You know what I mean? So there is an aspect there. Yes, there is a step that you're taking. They're no longer in the same position or context or whatever, right? But again, it's not a fundamental form kind of form altering event, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is, I think, where it may be coming from. But yeah, I agree. Like, from a point of view, like, this is also the thing. Like, people, there's the difference is so
I think I would like, I personally,
whatever.
the way I see it is that there are like, it's actually talking about change at some level. And what you're describing, transformation, is change at the fundamental structures level rather than at the superficial level.
Yeah, or the belief system that he mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So
So certain like changing fundamentals, of course, is a lasting change, because actually you're not trying to make the outcome is not the thing you're concentrating on. You're concentrating on the levers that eventually would lead to that outcome and make that outcome sustainable for the future.
and maybe, like, regardless of the word, we understand the difference that you are making, and that maybe explains why certain changes or transformations, like whichever word we pick, but why they fail. Because like one is more like driven to, from now on everyone needs to start doing this, but it doesn't mean that they really believe that they, as you were explaining, Jose, they didn't change
One
their
is
belief
superficial
system.
and the other one is fundamental.
Yeah, and I would say I'll probably use it as in the effort. No, we're pushing a change. No, that's the thing. The transformation is the outcome of that. No, and it is not just the we got from point A to point B and now we're done, right? Like, it's again, it's a matter of impact, or
Oh, I
or more
see.
impact.
Okay, so this is also slightly different. So
The change effort versus transforming the organization, right? And you may have a bunch of change efforts, right? Like or initiatives or whatever you want to call it. No, but that's the way that I kind of see it.
so basically, like, what you're saying is like, because I haven't seen that this way before. So there is, okay, again, I'm just like using some very simple examples for some people that might be watching. Like, one thing is to say, like, the outcome would be, from now on everyone wants to write or needs to write tests. So the outcome is like, yes, we have a lot of people writing tests. But on the transformation side, the outcome is like, after some point, we have a different culture where people believe that working in a specific way is a better
Not
way of
even,
working.
not even. I would say we have a culture where people care about quality, and they find the way to make sure that that quality is there, and that
Is
could
met.
be a TDD, that could be something else, but they're acting under a belief
I
system,
see.
no, or a
It's almost
culture
like a
that
values kind of, adoption
shift,
of a set of
exactly.
shifting values, basically.
And that would be the outcome. So
Yeah.
because this is interesting, because these, for example, if someone is driving change or an organization is driving change, it also will change how we measure that, right? Because then we don't measure the outputs, we measure the outcome, which is slightly, so we don't measure like how many tests are being written, or how,
Or if we're doing
like,
daily stand-ups or doing
exactly,
iterations and that kind of
or
stuff,
if
right?
every
You
team is
would be
using
surprised.
Scrum.
You would be surprised how many transformations do measure whether people are doing daily stand-ups or they're doing retrospectives. Or
I
the
see.
quality of that retrospective doesn't matter. Whether we're
I
improving or
see.
not, that doesn't
Or they're
matter.
doing test,
Yeah.
or they're doing
But you're
test-driven
doing it.
Or
development,
the
or
testing, yeah.
or
Exactly.
continuous integration, or all those things that are actually the means and not the end, right?
Exactly.
It's interesting because, like, again, maybe we are going a bit off on a challenge, and I don't know if we are, but like, but it piqued my interest now. Like, so then, for example, if we were going through these efforts, How do we measure? So for example, so then we would try to measure like a cultural change. Is that like what we would then measure? Because it's more like how people would react to
Well, this
situations
depends.
instead of like what they are actually doing.
Well, again,
This
this depends on what you are trying to achieve. No, like what is the reason that you're going to? If it is a transformation, yes, you should look at the cultural aspect, and there are many. Well, how do they call this, inventories? No, like tools in order to assess culture, right? And many depends on how you want to think about culture. There's plenty of models and stuff, but usually the one that I use is the Edgar Chain's model. You know, the three levels of culture. No, you have the artifacts. These are the things that are easily seen. No, like, you know, post-its on the wall, ties. You know, the hoodies, the Mac versus PC, whatever, right? Then sorry, you have the values, yeah, and then these are the values, the spoused values, right? Like spoused as in, you know, you're married to them, no, kind of thing. This is the
Oh, you
stuff
said
that, you know,
espoused. Sorry, I thought you said
spoused.
Yeah,
Sorry,
espoused.
spouse.
Espoused,
spoused,
which is not married. Espoused, as in the ones that you say.
that you say, exactly. Okay, so
Espoused. So not married
then
to them, but the ones you say. Espousing
exactly.
is
Okay.
say.
Okay, so and I'll need to rephrase that, but basically is the ones that you put on the wall, right? Like
Yeah.
you know, creativity, innovation, blah blah. And how many companies do we know that have that kind of stuff on the walls? And then you go there and they're like,
The one
you know,
behaves according to those.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, you can see the moths, no, coming out of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
wigs, right?
The dust gathering on the
Exactly.
frame.
Exactly. And then on the net you have what he calls the unchallenged beliefs or unchallenged assumptions, right? And this is kind of like the belief system, no, that people share. It's not written anywhere, right? But they've acquired it. No, it's the way that we do things here, right? Like people normally talk about it that way, and it's like, this is how we do things here. Like this is not how we, you know, and this could include things like, again, you don't contradict your boss, right? It could mean if you make a mistake, you know, heads would roll. Like all of those things are
The
part of
product owner is the project manager.
exactly, exactly. No, it's like, listen, we're changing the name, but everything stays the same. Nobody said that. Nobody wrote it anywhere and sent it on an email, right? That was just there, right? And people get that message, right? And the deeper you go, the harder it is to change. Yeah, because precisely those things are not explicit, right? Like one of the first things that you want to have a culture, a healthy culture and so on, is to qualify the culture and to make a lot of those assumptions and behaviors that are associated with those beliefs be visible, right? So that we can talk about them and then we can start, you know, changing those things. So yes, if you're talking about a transformation, you do want to look at the either the behaviors or the belief system, no. There are many frameworks as well to be able to do that, no, but you want to track that. However, there's an implementation aspect that you also need to look at, right? Like how do you know, how do you organize that, no, so that what comes out the other way is what you kind of expect, right? And there is an aspect of, you know, project management and treating it really like something that needs to get done, no. And in general, the way that we used to do this was you would have a funnel, basically, right? The adoption curve of innovation, the diffusion of innovation curve thing, you know, the early adopters and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine that that's kind of your funnel, right? Like what you want is everyone on each of those things to become either a supporter or, you know,
It might
be
be,
engaged
Jose,
with the.
sorry, it might be good for our listeners to explain the adoption curve. You talk about the crossing the chasm type thing, or
Exactly, because
Yeah,
there's a
exactly.
Cosman. Yeah.
Yeah, so this comes, I think, from research with farmers in the U.S., where they tracked the adoption of technology, in particular the how farmers in the area would adopt a specific type of seed for, I think it was corn or one of these things, right? And then they plotted that against, you know, the whole population, and they realized that there were certain behaviors associated with different segments, right? And it starts with the innovators, so the people that kind of like create the seed. Those are in one extreme. Then you have the early adopters, yeah, the people who were looking for a seed that you know, that would solve it, that would be resilient, and all these things, like easy to know, the good good stuff, all of that stuff, no. Then I think you have the early majority, and between the early majority and the early adopters, yeah, you have a bit of a gap, right? Like it's difficult to get to the other side, and this is what a lot of books around innovation and around, you know, lean startup and all the things, they kind of use that as a way to scale the business, etc. If you manage to get to the early majority, then you kind of solved the problem.
It's the crossing the chasm that they call.
Exactly,
right?
it's
So
crossing the chasm. Yeah, going Egger's book. Yeah. So basically, you have that, and then at the end, you have the laggers, the people that, you know, they only change their phone when the Nokia 365 broke. Then, oh shit! Now I have to buy a phone.
Or when Nokia goes bankrupt.
Exactly. Right? So that's the
yeah, and
kind
for
of
that phone to break, you need to throw a big stone at it, right? So
yeah,
break
yeah,
phone.
exactly.
It is possible that's going to break this stone. But
so basically, you need to look at the change like basically like let's call it a political campaign, no? Where you have people who've never heard of you, like you have this funnel, and then at the end you have people super engaged with the change or who are already expressing their behaviors, right? And on each stage of that funnel, then you need to set actions in order to move people through the funnel. Yeah. So if no one has heard of you or your change or whatever, they need to be aware of you, right? That's the first step, no? And then if they are aware of you, you know, how can you move them to the next steps, which is maybe, you know, having them perform certain actions that are not, you know, they may not be the whole thing, but they're beneficial to them, so they, you know. And then out of those people, some may start, you know, engaging more, so maybe you want to give them specific responsibilities or delegate responsibilities to them, and so on, right? Like you build your own kind of funnel.
yeah.
No?
And I wonder, like, if this applies, like if we go back to the actual individuals trying to drive change, if this happens also at a more local level. For example, even this kind of like curve, like with the crossing the chasm, as you were speaking, I understand from a product perspective. Like normally when we talk about crossing the chasm, we talk about product adoption and things like that. But like, I wonder, for example, when you're driving change, if you have a similar effect as well. So for example, you are within an organization and then you want to drive some change. It depends on the size of the change as well. If it's a very local change, you have very few people that you need to deal with, right? And very few things that you need to do to actually drive the change. But if you want to drive a slightly bigger change, I wonder if that is kind of similar in a way, because like, first of all, like people need to be aware of the things that you are promoting. For example, you cannot drive Agile in a company if no one has heard about that before. Also, like you need to reach a certain group of people in order to have a strength, and then go to the next level and then really promote that change to a wider audience. So you see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing,
Yeah,
but just more
you
like
can follow
localized.
the same thing, because you know the idea of the innovator is, so like let's say that you are the person who, innovation isn't just about invention, right?
Mhm.
It's about taking ideas and bringing them to another place where you are, or right. So if you look at the innovators, you are that person, let's say, who thinks, well, you know, we're working in this way, but actually if we worked in an agile way, we would achieve better results. And you have a very clear idea, and it's not just personally driven, but you have a clear idea on how that could happen, and you're the innovator then, right? And what you're trying to do is to get to the is it the early adopters, right? So you're trying to find a place where you can establish this early adopter type dynamic, whether that's within your team, or, and this is something that we maybe should talk about, is like bringing about change, It's like, how do you find the first set of people that will help you with that change, right? Of course, there's other aspects of creating the urgency and so on as well, but you need to find those, like your team or so on. You create the
Exactly,
urgency, but you also need to convince people, right?
because this is quite key, right? So because like you cannot drive change alone, right? So because driving change means like you know what you'd like to change, you know how you would like to work in a different way, or build whatever feature in a product or whatever, right? So if it was just up to you, yeah, you would change like that. But the reason that we normally are talking about driving change is because not everyone else in the surroundings see the world like the person driving the change sees, and you need to start bringing those people together, like, and increasing the number of people that want that change in order to actually create that cultural impact that Jose was talking before. And also, like the other aspect that I would like to bring in, it takes a specific type of person to actually do that as well, because like everyone
It takes a leader.
it takes a leader in a way, right? Because like it's very easy. No, it's just like saying like it's very easy for everyone to point fingers. So like when you do a survey, everyone can say everything that is wrong. Oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But it takes a specific type of person that can actually change that and bring people along and actually make that change effective. Like
I would go beyond that, because yes, you need a vision, and a lot of these times, this comes from individuals, no, like the whole "I have a dream" kind of thing. Like you're talking about what your vision is, and then people share it or can get behind it or whatever. But in order for this thing to actually happen, then you need what is called a guiding coalition, so to speak, and that's a few things, right? Like you need leaders, so you need people who are able to lead, but you also need people who are very good at executing as well. You also need people who can influence other, or who have authority in the organization, and so on. So there needs to be a right balance in that group, because it's very difficult to get all of those things in just one person. You can do that maybe in a team, or like a smaller thing, but usually in an organization you require the help of all of them, and that balance between execution, ideation, influence, authority, and all of that needs to be, the ingredients need to be there. Otherwise you're gonna hit a wall, right? If you don't have authority, you start putting things forward, and immediately you're gonna bash yourself against the walls of the system. No, it's like, no, this is the no.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that. Sorry to interrupt you, but I certainly agree that not always the person driving that change has all the necessary skills or can amplify that desire, that sense of urgency, or that sense of excitement. But the person driving the change needs to understand that. So, for example, they need to understand. Okay, I need to amplify that. I need to create this sense. I need to. This needs to be done. So that we can get more credibility, so that we can go to the next stage of the change. And even when they know that they cannot do that thing, let's say they need something done, maybe they don't have the skills, but they have someone in that coalition that you have mentioned. But they need to have that vision. This is what I'm trying to say. Even assembling that coalition takes a specific type of person. See what I'm saying? It's a much wider view. It's not only like I'm gonna keep shouting that we need to do TDD until someone listens, because like you're just gonna be like you're gonna lose your voice. That's the only thing that's gonna happen, right? So, but it takes a specific type of person to strategize that, and this can be a very. I'm always looking for this kind of word in English. I know that they exist. I just don't know what it is. But it's almost like it's not unfulfilling or not unrewarding. It's a very difficult job to do, because like you might not get any reward for it. That's
a thankless task.
Thankless job. This is exactly yes. That's the word. So because like driving change can be a very thankless job. Like let me just refocus my camera. So my camera loses focus sometimes, but it can be it will come back at some point.
People in the podcast don't need to worry about it.
True. So yeah, people listening to the podcast, they won't see me blurred at the moment. But this is what I'm saying. While I'm blurred, I'll keep speaking anyway. So it's a very thankless task because there is a lot of effort in driving change. So you really need to find some inner motivation, like some inner strength, because you're going to be fighting the status quo. And sometimes for almost no reward. It's just like that you feel better doing your job, or so you really need to understand what motivates you, because it takes a very special type of person to actually drive change.
I think I think if you go alone, yes, definitely. You will need to you will need to find the reserves of energy that will keep you going. But if you actually go with people, then it's better, and you will go further, right? So
No, sure.
I think this also
Sorry.
is about the need to find your coalition early and quickly, and it doesn't need to be you can find your partner and the
But this
next
is the
one and so
hardest
on.
part. But this is the hardest part, because this is what I realized over time. Finding the first people to subscribe to your ideas is harder than amplifying that later. So you see what I'm saying?
I don't know, man. Like, because this is the thing. Again, we're talking about it like you're trying to drive change and so on, but there's plenty of things that you can get from an external consultant that they can do this. And I remember in
I
particular
thought that
talking.
was the only shameless plug that we were gonna
No,
do
no,
in the
no, no, no.
beginning
I'm
of
not.
the
No, 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 no. But listen.
Yeah, you can hire Codurance
I was
and we'll sort that out for you.
No, 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 no. It's not us. But I was talking the other a while back on the podcast to someone from Satalia, right? And what they were doing is they were using metrics to understand the influencers in the organization, and then use that to accelerate the change. So I would rephrase what you were saying. It's difficult to find them. No, you already know who the people that you would love to have on your change are. Those are the people that you invite them. If someone's gonna throw a party, you would invite
If
that
you have
person,
their
right?
buy-in, basically, if you
Exactly.
have
The,
their
the difficult
buy-in,
part then
we will
is
drive this.
how do I get them to join? How do I get them to join me, right? But a lot of times you can tell who you want
bribery of
driving. Right, but that's the idea, no? And this is interesting because a lot of the state of the art on that is precisely using thousands or millions of data points on who interacts with who in the organization, etc., and creating these networks, no, of the organization, who influences and so on, and using that to kind of accelerate that, and then putting some of the people that are hubs, no, that are kind of like the connectors in your organization, and winning them over, and trying to, and if you don't win them over, at least they will tell you what it is that is wrong with your idea.
I don't know. I don't
This is
know.
precisely.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that sounds like a very developer kind of solution to the people problem, right? The way I see this is, the way I see this is, if you've got an idea and you are really motivated by it, and you can't convince the people closest to you, then you should really be reviewing your idea.
Yeah. I had to learn that in the hard way, and this is precisely what I was saying. Because sometimes you drive change, like convincing the first people around you. This is one of the biggest challenges, because you are not just convincing them that maybe there is a better way of doing things, or that you have a better idea. You need to motivate them to join you, to drive that, to amplify that need, so you can have many different strategies. It depends of how well you understand the situation. Because, for example, you were saying, Jose, there are a few key people that if you bring them on board, it will speed up the process, because either they are the decision makers or they are very influential and stuff. But again, there is what I'm trying to say is it goes beyond then. For example, I want to use TDG, or I want to add this feature, or I want to improve the product, or I want to change the process. It becomes a skill on its own driving the change, because you need to have a much wider view of the problems. Like, okay, I know what I would like to improve, I know what I'd like to change, but actually driving that change and create this strategy in who you speak to, how do you bring them on board, who is important to influence. This is a skill on its own, and this is something that I didn't have in the past. Again, I would be just shouting that everything is wrong, and I had this magical solution that will fix the whole world. And as I said, I just lost my voice most of the time, right? So,
But but this is like where Jose earlier talked about, like, the first thing is to create the sense of urgency. And sense of urgency is actually part of the convincing process, right? Sense of urgency, like, there's a lot packed in that kind of a simple sentence.
because it's a sense of urgency for the right people as well.
For the
it's
right
not
people,
only the
like,
sense
it's
of
the person,
urgency.
and at
it's for the
different
right
levels and different times,
Exactly.
and it's a different thing for everyone. Again, it's a bit of an empathy exercise as well, right? And understanding other perspectives and what it is that is important, and aligning all of those things together, right? We one of the things we used to do was, a case for the change. Yeah, and we looked at a bunch of things. It was not like, hey, financials, or no. It's like you look at competitors, you look at trends in the market, you look at mistakes, or what costs that you're having internally, like inefficiency, like how people feel about things, etc. Like you look at a bunch of things, and all of those are different perspectives. Why? Because when you're talking to the HR department, they'll be interested in some things. When you're talking to the finance department, they'll be interested in some things. That like product people will be looking at developers to another. So, and creating that full
holistic
picture,
view,
that full picture of what's in it for them, right? And communicating that again and again and again. It's key,
This is a very interesting point, because like when you ask like what is in it for them, because like basically when you are trying to drive change, quite often you are asking other people to change, right? So that's the whole point, right? So otherwise you just do your own local change and then problem solved. So this is an important point that you raised, like what is in it for them, because where at least I failed in the past would be like, I realized that many years later that I was just giving them another problem. See what I'm saying? So I was going to them and say, hey, we need to change all of that. But for them, it was not clear what would be the benefit. In fact, just changing those things would just create more work or more problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It drives a lot of fears, actually. It invokes a lot of fears, because suddenly you're asking them actually to face certain fears. They might be quite comfortable in the way that they're doing things, and you're asking them to kind of go into the unknown often, right?
Yeah. I think that I'm just trying to remember if we actually discussed that in a previous episode, because like I certainly spoke about that quite a few times before, because like the one thing that you need to be very conscious about is when you are driving change, quite often one of the biggest mistakes is that we go with a solution, right? So we go there, it's like, hey, I think that we need to start doing X. Yeah, so that's what I've done. Certainly I've done that myself. Like, I think we should do this, and all of a sudden you are telling someone or a group of people that we should be doing X. So basically we are proposing, as you were joking earlier in the episode, Mash, you are proposing a solution that they don't know which problem that solution is addressing. And this was a big mistake. And in terms of understanding what is in it for them, sometimes it's much easier. For example, when you think that you need to change and you normally have already a solution in your head, before you even put that solution on the table, you go to the people that you need support and try to align on the problem. So like, what are the key, and start asking questions. It's like, what are the key, then you can choose your tactic. Because if the problem, that the change that you want is about an inefficiency, you can be direct. It's like, what kind of inefficiency that you see in our project, in our process, or in our project, or whatever. So you can tackle it. Or for example, if you want to change something that is more exciting, that is a new thing and stuff, and so like, you can ask that kind of question. So like, where do you like where do you see this product going, or this project going, or this company going? What are your aspirations and stuff like that? Because then you start aligning, you start creating a common vision, and then you start also having an understanding if the person that you are talking to sees the same problems. And if they don't give the answer that you are expecting, maybe they don't see the same problem, or they don't see what you envision, and then you can put that on the table. It's like, what about this? Is this a problem for you? And if yes, how big that is? Because then you start understanding how, if the person said, no, this is not a big problem, and for you the whole drive of the whole change is about that problem that you judge to be enormous, and all of a sudden that person doesn't see that as big, it's like, okay, so you don't see it as a problem. So what are the problems that are bigger than this one then? So, or why don't you see that as a problem? Because if you establish that relationship first, you will open up your perspectives as well. And then you might decide that maybe the change that you are driving is not going to make a big difference, or you can adapt your strategy, right? But I think that this
Or
is
you
quite
can
key
change
as well.
yourself, because maybe again you're looking from
Exactly.
a point of view where you don't have all the information, and then you
Now you
think
have
something is
more
a problem and it's
information.
not a problem. So that
Exactly.
could
in,
Now,
also
in
happen.
yeah, in fact, all those things, if you open yourself to change, right, you have a solution or in mind, or you think there is certain kind of problem exists, but you are speaking to others, opening yourself to change, to see, I am talking to other people because I'm seeking to understand more if the thing that I think is important is actually important. So you go with this certain kind of humility to say, I think certain thing is important, but actually I haven't discussed it with other people. I haven't validated my ideas and my assumptions. And how do I go about speaking to people and understanding and validating my assumptions in order to really see what the problems are? Then you are open, and you go open-minded, and you go there to change yourself and not to change the other.
I think that this is such a great point, because like this is another thing that is very important, and it took me a very, very long time to understand that. So you really need to understand what you want. Do you want to change things and improve things, or do you want to push your solution? Because those are very different things, right? So are you going to a conversation in order to solve a problem, and you are open to all possible solutions that may derive from that conversation? Or you are just there going to say, this is the solution that I want, and that's, if we don't have that solution, I will not be satisfied? Because that is a very different kind of conversation,
Mhm.
right?
Actually, in his book Together, Richard Sennett talks about this as two types of conversation: the dialectical and the dialogical. And the
Right.
dialogical he talks about is that, it's a zero-sum game. You are there to win. The
Mm.
dialectical, I think I'm trying to get it the right way, is about, I am going to have a conversation with you in order to improve my own understanding of my opinion.
Mhm. I see. Yeah, exactly. Because this also increases, like, and this distinction is very important, because like you have a much bigger chance of driving change when you can align on the problems first, right? So make sure
Mhm.
that so like, first of all, like, do you all perceive the same problems? Do we all want to be in this next stage, or this next, in this other place, right? So in a better place or whatever. Because then you are opening up to any possible solution that can take you there, or that can solve the problem. But if you just go there and say, hey, this is what I think we should want to do, and you are fighting now for your solution and not to solve the problem anymore, the chances of you succeeding will be much smaller. There is no doubt about it.
There's an aspect we haven't discussed yet, which is resistance. Like a lot of the times, whether you're doing all of these things or not, you will find resistance. And I think
Jose, wait to bring in a topic that can take half
Exactly,
an
because
hour in the final
as
1 minute.
you know,
no, we
it's
have
a great
the
time. We
extra
are
10 minutes.
59
We have
minutes
the extra
in,
10 minutes.
right?
No, but it is quite important, I think, and people tend to see the whole idea of change as a them versus us kind of approach, right? Like we are trying to push this solution, we're the ones that have the truth, and then the other ones, the same. No, so everyone's holding to their guns. That is not the approach. A lot of the times, at least I see resistance a bit as a fuel for the change in itself, because it is the system telling you what it is that is not working about your solution, right? Like when people are resisting something, no, it's because they have reasons to resist. Like nobody said, no, don't give me €1 million, right? That's a change, no, but it's a good change, so to speak. No, so nobody's gonna tell you no. That's why I feel like that's kind of the input that you need to get in order to evolve, let's say, the way that you're doing the change, or to get that input on what's not working within your aspect. When people tell you, well, the thing is, I don't know, that it takes double the time for me to write this test, therefore I don't want to write tests. Yeah, what are they telling you there? I mean, you can see it as, oh, he doesn't want to do great practice or whatever. That's the us versus them approach. But in the end, if you look at what the person is saying, there is some value to what he's saying. Like what he's possibly saying is, hey, I'm not skilled enough doing this, yeah, so that I can perform at the same level that I perform right now. Mm-hmm. Could we do something about that? Yeah. And that kind of thing. So I do think that people tend to, and there's also a bunch of types of resistance. No, like if you look at it, a lot of times we would get to a place and people would say, we already tried this. What do you do about that? Like, no, like we already tried it. Like, oh, you're trying to change. Yeah, this is the 5th change that we tried on this bank, and I've been here for 20 years. So I've seen a lot of these go by. So no,
yeah,
convince me.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
As we didn't have enough plugs, so I can have another one. Then so in my own book that I wrote, the called as we didn't have enough plugs, right? So but I wrote a chapter called Driving Technical Change, and that comes actually from a book with the same name called Driving Technical Change. And there are the type of skepticals or skeptics. And the one that you mentioned, the name for it, we call it the burnt, like someone that was burnt from a previous attempt. And there is a big list like that in the Driving Technical Change book. He talks about some of the skeptics. I expand that list considerably, but this is the understanding the genuine reasons why people would reject an idea is extremely important, because you need to change your strategy. Because as soon as you say, like, okay, so if this kind of approach would not work with you, why is that? And then depend on the answer that they give you, you identify, okay, what kind of skeptic this person is. Oh, they tried again, or they tried before, or they just read somewhere, because there's a different type of person, just that just read things, right? And or they are under pressure, or they lack of skills. As you said, there might be, and then the strategy to deal with that person will change significantly, right? I won't stop there because, again, this is a big topic as well.
All right. Well, I guess we should wrap up then. No.
Mm-hmm.
Any final words before we close?
Well, I think that this is similar to what I said in previous episodes. I don't remember exactly which one, but like in some of the few ones.
Be the change you want to be in the world.
Well, it was not as cheesy as that, but like it's not that far either. So the thing is, if you don't find the inner strength to drive change, then what means that you are going to be just unhappy with whatever environment you have. You don't have the strength to make the change. You think that it's not worth it, or it's not going to happen. And then what you do? You move. You go to another company. Try to find a place where that scenario doesn't exist. But then you're going to be disappointed again, because there will be other things that will also annoy you. and then you will not find the inner strength again, and then you're gonna give up again and go somewhere else, and you never find a place. So the way the final words for me is like just find the inner strength and make the change that you need to make, and fight for those changes and develop that skill, because developing that skill, you increase the chances of you find happiness in the environment that you are in.
I think my final thought is that, focus on the outcomes for the organization, and not just your personal outcomes or your personal ideology or ideals, even if that is your starting point. And it's fine to have that as the starting point. I want to do TDD because actually it's considered to be in the industry as generally a fairly good thing to do. But okay, what is the outcome if we envision your team, your company, your organization doing that? What would improve? Okay, is that worthwhile? How you can then take that and speak to people about those outcomes, those improvements, and that may lead back to the solution that you already had in mind. But again, keep your mind open, because there might be a different solution that's much better than the one you started with.
Right. Well, you covered a lot of stuff in there. So, what I would say is, I would like to leave you with, I guess, two questions that I used to ask, for instance, teams when we're coaching them and that kind of stuff. Which is, do you think that you are, the best team or the best company that you can be? That's the first question, because usually the answer to that is no. And if the answer is yes, then there's nothing to do, because they're perfect. So that's fine. There's no way you're gonna no. Well, there are ways, but that's a hard that's a steep.
Well, you can't get better than
mountain to
perfect,
climb.
mate.
No, because the thing is, they may have the perception that they are perfect, but then you need to chip at that and actually show the things that they're not aware of or whatever, right? And create that sense of urgency and so on. So that no, but if they say no, yeah, the next question is, would you like to? No, would you like to be the best company? Would you like to? Then let's work on that. No, and I feel like if you pose those questions to your team, if you like it, maybe it's TDD, maybe it's something else, but if you're always kind of going back to the beginning here, striving to improve and trying to adapt and do things better, that's it, right? Like, you're going to be making it better not only for yourself but for everyone else. No. Okay, let's wrap it up here. If you like what you heard, subscribe, hit the notification bell or whatever, and you'll get notified when we launch a new episode. And see you on the next one.
See you next time.
Thank you.